Hello, greetings, and welcome everyone to yet another ASL weekly review. We're in season 11. I double checked, I wasn't wrong the last weeks. But today is a very special day because, along with Lord Brad and I, we have a special guest, Baron Brett. Go ahead and say hi.
Next meme. Hi.
Okay. Brett managed to make it on with us because Ian is a turd and has time zones or something. And we had a tournament that was based purely on 100% skill that Brett won, which guarantees that he is the best player in this league, and he is just losing some matches to give us a false sense of security. It's all planned.
That's why I beat Peaches pretty handily. I'm starting to show my true colors.
Yeah, exactly.
Spoiler alert.
No, I was talking about the tournament that was totally 100% skill.
All right, well, I guess you can go ahead and start with the first match whenever you feel like it.
Well, first match we have here is Lille and Static. It seemed to go pretty handily in Static's favor. He did a pretty good job of keeping his setups, Lille's setups in check with freaking Araconade and Salamence with Intimidate. But Lille did have the presence of mind not to Mega Evolve his Altaria until later, so he didn't get the sticky webs drop. But it just seemed like Static did a pretty good job overall keeping his setups in check.
The Araquanid, I thought, was a really smartly played mon. I would have never thought of an Araquanid coming in as a featured check to a Mega Altaria. Mm-hmm. But the lunge continued to come in, and Altaria could get whatever speed it wanted off, but it couldn't get that attack boost. And I thought that was a really crafty little set.
Yeah, between the Araquanid and the Salamence Intimidate, it seemed like Lille just couldn't keep any of those attack boosts up. And I think if Lille had the opportunity to set up, it may have been a different match, but as is, Static just... It seemed like there were at least one hard checks to all of Lille's Pokemon on Static's team.
Yeah, it did seem that way. And it wasn't really a situation... I think the differential here is a bit deceptive. I thought it was a pretty close match, and I thought it was a pretty well-played match, and maybe one or two poor choices probably could have turned the tide in the opposite direction. So it's a 5-0, but in my mind, it's not a beating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there was one point where the Emboar got a late flinch on Lille's Mega Altaria that was going to click Roost, and that would have kept the Mega Altaria up a little while longer, and I don't know what would have happened, but in general, I think that I think I'm just really impressed with the way Static was able to stonewall Lille's team, and maybe that was more of a matchup thing, because sometimes there are just matchups that there are a lot of checks, but either way, I think Static played it really well.
Something that has continued to impress me, though, is Morpeko. Just from me playing the game, I haven't really done much calcs on it. It's done a lot more damage than what I thought it could do, at least in most matches.
Yeah, I've got to say, I'm pretty impressed with it as well. You see, I believe it has a 98 attack, or maybe that's its speed or something, but its attack isn't over 100, and it's still dishing out a lot of damage.
I really like the Alolan Marowak use. This Alolan Marowak, it may not be getting kills every week, although this week it did get a kill, but it's taking big chunks of health.
Yeah, so next up we have match number 2, which is Brett versus Peaches, and this is where we see Brett's first mistake. You see that little tiny 1 next to Sandaconda. Brett was actually trying to get away with cheating, and saying that Peaches didn't get as many kills as he did, and only out of sheer guilt did he put that little tiny 1 there and say, "Oh, sorry guys, I messed up."
Yep.
Yeah, I had to make it a little tinier though.
Yeah, it wasn't as significant, obviously. But this match was, well, Brett won, obviously, and I think that one of the big reasons for that, it wasn't the only reasons, but one of the big reasons was you actually brought a metronome Greninja, which did a lot of work. It just clicking Dark Pulse over and over again. It didn't seem like Peaches had too much that wanted to be switching into that, because all the things that could take Dark Pulse, they weren't really wanting to take anything else Greninja was dishing out. So that's how the Greninja ended up getting 3 out of the 6 kills this week. And Vikavolt was actually a pretty important pivot on your side as well. It is always bulkier than you think maybe it should be. And in this case, it took, I believe, like some hits from Kyurem. I know it took some, it dealt a ton of damage to Skarmory, and in general, just a very good Pokemon this week.
Yeah, something I do want to say though is that there were a lot of misses on Peach Inn that could have changed what had happened. For example, there was a miss with Stone Edge whenever I switched into Vikavolt. That could have, I didn't do the calc on it, but it could have killed me. And there was a few play rough misses that also could have come into play, but towards the end, the play rough miss didn't really matter with the Stoutland.
Yeah.
You know, I watching this match. This was one of the few matches this week I got to see live, and at about turn, I'm gonna say 3, I was pretty sure Brett was gonna get destroyed, because in those few turns he'd managed to swap his Nidoqueen into a knockoff, T-Bolt, and Incineroar for no reason it seemed, and then die to an Earthquake. And I was like, oh god, he is way behind the 8 ball. But like you said, the Greninja play did end up making a big difference in the end. Metronome actually has a little bit of a history in ASL, and there's been several matches where I think the key feature of the match was Metronome. And so Brett maybe just continuing that tradition of having it pop up and perform well. The Tailwind was pretty good this week. I thought the Tailwind came into play and it was nice. But around turn 2 or 3, when I saw Brett kind of throw his Nidoqueen away, I was quite concerned this was going to be a beating.
Yeah, Brett, I assume that Thunderbolt was maybe expecting Skarmory to come in on an Earth Power?
That was exactly the reason.
Okay.
But I was talking to Peaches afterward. The Earth Power wasn't even doing but like 50% to Incineroar anyway.
Okay. Yeah, something that I find amusing is after, like, a little later in the week, Peaches actually DM'd me and said, "Oh shoot, I just watched your weekly recap video and I just saw that Brett brought the Tailwind Braviary. Maybe I would have been prepared if I had actually watched the video on time." And he said the same thing to Brad and I during a video call, or a chat during the Commissioner Bowl. But yeah, that just goes to prove that you should be watching these videos, because we will give you excellent insight that could mean the difference in your ASL matches. Or, just watch your opponent's replays. But
This is true. And I did know from prepping with Brett, that's why I ran a Babiri on my Wigglytuff, was for that Steel Wing Dragapult. And I was fairly certain that Brett had the wherewithal to bring it this week. And so I felt confident at Team Preview that Brett was going to win. But felt much less confident at turn 2 or 3. And then, but by the end, hey, it worked out. Peach didn't play terribly either. It was just, I think it was a good matchup, and Brett played really well. But on to match number 3. This is our own host, one and all, SirMoth, facing IL Kid. Moth finally did it, ladies and gentlemen. He brought the Regigigas. He finally did it. As you can see on the stat sheet, it didn't matter, but he finally did it. So I know it's a moral victory for him. So big wins there. It was a pretty competitive game. Close match, I thought. Really, it was just a close match. Obviously, the Gouge ended up having the majority of the kills. Nothing else in the entire match had more than one kill, it looks like. The Lando had some big hits on the Scizor that I thought mattered. Lando hit Scizor harder than I expected it to. Honestly, the toxic spikes were important. They were valuable. I don't know that they were the end-all to be all of everything. I felt like there was still quite a bit of good happening, but they certainly mattered. And I thought Moth played well. At the end of the day, it was a high-level match. Two guys that are doing pretty well in the standings. And at least in this one particular match, whereas Static earlier in the season just decided to sub-protect for no reason, at least Moth had a reason. He was sub-protecting, gaining poison damage on that Tapu Lele to eventually swap it out and ensure that Regigigas can finish the season of having done nothing successfully.
Yeah, I was telling Moth before we started, I was really happy with Regigigas this week. It did so much in bringing down the help of Tapu Lele, and also a lot of early chip helped him out as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, Regigigas did so much. It did literally the same amount that any other Pokemon that could take a hit from Tapu Lele could have done. Sub, Protect, Toxic, those are three moves that are like... Yeah, Regigigas, you said it was a moral victory. I felt at this point that it was more of a moral requirement. Because I've been saying, oh my gosh, this thing is a beast. You guys don't even know. I'm gonna show you, and then I start to prep, and it's like, oh, it loses to this. It doesn't do anything. It's slow. It doesn't have attack. Its move pool is awful. Yeah, the fact that it got moves that are universal to every other Pokemon in the game didn't really help it that much.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to bring it one time so that I could chuck it. But other than that, yeah, I think Toxic Spikes were very valuable. ILKid did actually message me and say that the Scizor was supposed to be Defog instead of Knockoff. And that would have changed quite a bit. But for some reason, the team builder didn't save it correctly or something like that. So the Toxic Spikes were important. I do think that I still had paths to win without them. For example, the Tapu Lele would have been Toxic Poisoned instead of regular Poisoned by Regigigas. That Victini miss, like 94% accurate move that cost my Victini its life, and Victini, I think, took down all of ILKid's team at that point. But, in general, I feel like, yeah, just, it's really hard to fight against Toxic Spikes if you don't have a way to remove it, so I don't feel like I can comment on much more of the match, because that really was the match.
Well, that may be the case, and Showdown has certainly changed items and natures, or at least I thought I had saved it correctly and I hadn't have. But unlike some of ILKid's matches this season where hacks has come into play, Showdown actually gave him the benefit of the doubt, allowing that blue flare to miss, and I thought that was a big moment in the battle. As a spectator watching the replay of this one, when that blue flare missed, I was very concerned that you would not have the breaking power to finish the match off. And it ended up working out in your favor, certainly. But where, like I said, we've been saying this season, ILKid's had some bad luck. Some things haven't went his way that are hard to control and hard to predict. Showdown tried to give him the advantage this week in turn 24 with a big blue flare miss, and it still wasn't enough. So, compliments to you on the win, and, good luck next week to ILKid.
Yeah. So, you want to get match 4, Brett?
Yep. So going into match 4, we have Dravos and TCP. Just looking at this match, that early kill with Kecleon on the Sylveon was very crucial. And I feel like Crabominable, it just did so much in this match.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and Dracozolt, I don't believe that, well, from the stats, it didn't get any kills, but I know that it got at least one huge chunk off on Zygarde 50,
Yes.
which that was a really aggressive switch from Drevos,
Mhm.
but I do think that played a decent part in it because it meant that Drevos had to spend a little bit of extra time uh, getting the, I believe, Alomomola to Wish Heal up the Zygarde again, which may have been momentum that could have gone somewhere else. So Dracozolt and Kecleon Crabominable, it really just was a case of TCP, as per usual, bringing some really strong breakers that do some really good breaking.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. It was a tough match. You know, TCP's playing exceptionally well this season. He always plays well, but this season he may be playing a little better than normal. I did think through the match, I can't remember how many times El Momola took hits, but I know it took us several hits, and I really thought Rocky Helmet maybe was the bring this week, considering how many times it ended up swapping in and how many things it was taking hits from, with the Crabominable and the Kecleon and the Lopunny. Seemed like Rocky Helmet Chip maybe would have been a good way to get TCP down on his luck quite a bit, but eventually the Crabominal hit Bulk Up, I believe, and it just started drain punching everything to death. And my main question at this point is just why have Brett not been drafting Crabominable and just bulking up turn 1 and winning every week? That's kind of what I'm wondering. And he's gone.
That sounds like a really good thing to do, honestly. Like, just Crabominable, it just can't die. Especially
Apparently
with
not.
getting health back with Drain Punch, it just can't die.
Yeah, it's
Apparently
been
not,
a lot of
right?
I've seen a lot of people shit on Crabominable, and it's a really good mod when it comes down to it.
Yeah, you can't see, but I'm actually raising my hand. I am one of those people, but no longer, because TCP is really proving its worth.
Yeah. And of course it helps being able to get into it easier with Slowbro having teleport nowadays. That certainly greases the wheels for Crabominable. Also having the Trick Room teleport even further opens the doors. But, you know, Crabominable was relatively bulky, and Dravos doesn't have a lot to add, just as Brett aptly pointed out. Once Sylveon was gone, Dravos really didn't have a lot to offensively check Crabominable.
Yeah, so match number 5, we had Dirty Logic versus Melone, and first thing, Melone did it. He finally did it, brought Mega Gallade, clicked moves with Mega Gallade. It actually worked. But that wasn't, despite what the stats make it look like, that wasn't the entire story. There were a few really interesting things that happened this game. One of them that I will highlight, this was just such a weird thing for me to see, was Mamoswine against Fortress. And Mamoswine was getting like 12% off with Icicle Crash each turn. And Fortress just kept clicking Volt Switch. Because at that point, if you're Dirty Logic, why the heck aren't you switching into Mega Charizard? Or something else. And so Melone was just, okay, I'm going to keep clicking Volt Switch. And it just kept happening. It was like 3 or 4 turns in a row. And then finally, Melone just clicked Gyro Ball and killed Mamoswine from like 87%.
Yeah.
So that was a really interesting interaction there. I haven't seen such interesting fake outs happen in a really long time. But other than that, it seemed like Dirty Logic just had a hard time getting any momentum this game, because between Fortress, which could just slow Volt Switch, and Shaman was taking hits really well, Zapdos could force things out really well. It seemed like Melone just always had that momentum until the point where Togekiss was gone, and Mega Gallade could just come in, set up Sword Stance, and do what it does.
Yeah. You know, I think part of what happened this week is, and I want you guys' opinion. I may be completely wrong here. I think part of what happened this week was a byproduct of what happened to Dravos last week. Last week, Dravos and I played, and I was incredibly aggressive, and I made a lot of really hard doubles. And I think this week you can see Dirty Logic trying to put that in his repertoire and making a couple of moves or not making a couple of moves, anticipating Melone would do something different and it not working out. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Toga Kiss versus the Zapdos, turn 5, Dirty Logic swaps directly into the Mamoswine while Zapdos U-turns, right? So we get to the exact same setup, turn 9, and I think Dirty Logic is like, trying to get in that prediction game maybe, or trying to do something different, knowing that the U-turn came last time. All right, I'm going to make a healthy prediction. Takes a Thunderbolt to the face, and he loses his Toga Kiss right off the bat. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I'm reading into this, is that he tried to get into maybe making a predictions or making some feel for the games when he had a good swap in, and he didn't do that. And then once he got his Toga Kiss was down, I think he got a little bit behind the 8-ball. Maybe tried to make something happen with a Mamoswine. I'm not sure. But it went really downhill once the Toga Kiss was gone.
Yeah, I do think that was the case. Just looking at it after he lost Toga Kiss and he was in the Mamoswine, his only switch really was to go into Charizard, and I think he was trying to not do that.
Yeah.
And see if like Fortress is going to do something else, but Melone just called that because Fortress wasn't really doing anything to Mamoswine wasn't doing anything to Fortress whatsoever.
Right.
So
right.
Melone just kept volt switching.
Mamoswine would have actually ran out of Icicle Crashes, but if it would have flinched every turn, it would have ran out of Icicle Crashes before it killed Fortress.
Mm-hmm.
Like Fortress was only taking a net loss of 6% health.
Yeah, I think that Melone has actually been playing really good these past few matches, especially. I've been seeing, like, at the beginning of the season, what I was seeing a lot from Melone is very just linear gameplay, I guess I could say. Melone was making what seemed like a lot of the correct decisions, like, okay, I'm Zapdos, I'm against a Togekiss, I'm going to click Thunderbolt. And it would happen like every single setup. Melone would do the same thing that's technically correct against the Pokemon he's facing. But moves like that, Zapdos clicking U-turn the first time and then switching it up, and the Fortress play, just like knowing that situationally, even if Mamoswine isn't switching, Volt switches the play here, and just little things like that, I think Melone has been really improving on.
I agree. He's on a two game win streak, right? After going 0-5.
I believe so, yeah.
So something's happening.
If he can keep this hot streak going, I do think that he could potentially get into playoffs towards the end of the season.
Definitely so, right? Yeah. I mean, historically speaking, 7 wins is the least amount of wins to ever make playoffs. And so at 5 losses, theoretically, Melone could only lose 1 more game and still reach the 7-win mark. So, I mean, he could definitely do it. But on to match 6, we have Shadow and Sorrel.
I've been saying Sorrel. I'm going with a Lillet type of thing. I'm just going to go with it.
Let's go with Sorrel.
Sorrel. Okay. Sorrel, Shadow. This is Sorrel's second week, I believe, right?
Yes.
I believe this is her second week. I don't think last week went her way. This week went her way in a relatively hard fashion. Decent little back and forth. Very disappointed to not see Mr. Ryan be as effective as it was the first time. Maybe it's not actually A tier. Maybe it's more like B tier. I'm not sure. But it did some things. It froze a Florges, and it taunted it just to be like, ha, froze you. And then it made it swap out. And then But then very quickly, Volcarona hit the field, and it just did Volcarona things. I'm not quite sure Shadow's plan. He was standing in front of the Volcarona, and he was scalding it, doing less than 50%, which, I mean, what do Volcaronas do, right? The quiver dance, get you a spit F trump. You know, it seemed like that was destined to fail, and it seemed like Shadow didn't have... I mean, where was his Volcarona answer? What was he swapping into to deal with Volcarona? If you just looked at his six, which one's going to deal with Volcarona? It's got to be the Melodic, but the Melodic was doing less than 50%. So I don't know if maybe there was an investment thing that he didn't expect, or maybe he just was like, you know what, Volcarona ain't nothing. I got this, and he didn't. I'm not sure what the approach was there. Now, not that to say that he has a whole ton on his team that deals with Volcarona super well, but maybe he brings the Talonflame with, you know, the Galewing Brave Bird that can at least come in and pop it whenever, you know, necessary. I'm not sure what his answer was, but I know what he had wasn't his answer. And it ended up breaking the back of his team. And Volcarona, I think, only ended up with 2 kills, but Volcarona unquestionably broke Shadow's team. And then it just ended up being cleaned up by a really fast Zeraora.
Yeah, that definitely looked like precisely what happened. Maybe Shadow was relying on getting Stonejourner in, but the thing about Stonejourner is it has like a special defense of 2. So yeah. If the Volcarona is set up at all, if it has Giga Drain, like there are a lot of things that could happen there. Yeah, it really did just seem like Shadow wasn't prepared for the Volcarona, which I can understand. It is hard to prep against a team that has that Shell Smash Blastoise, Volcarona, Zeraora, in addition to a lot of other like Crocodile, and you have to be prepared for a lot of threats. But Volcarona is definitely one of the top 3 that you need to be prepared for.
You definitely can't not prepare for Volcarona. A lot of people have used Volcarona pretty successfully. Brad, for example, whenever he had his season with Volcarona, he did use it pretty well. And you can't just sleep on it. It'll come in and kill things.
Yeah. It's much bulkier than people expect it to be. The Flame Body is one of my favorite abilities in meta, honestly. Flame Body is so good. And like I said, the only thing, if you really you break down Shadow's roster, he doesn't have a lot of Volcarona answers. But I really feel like, and I know Sorrel has the Lycanroc Dusk that could blow back Talonflame. But it seemed to me that like a Gale Wings, Brave Bird sitting in the back waiting on something to happen, Talonflame was Shadow's really only answer. And since it wasn't there, it couldn't scare the Volcarona out, which, led to a pretty quick demise. This was only a 17-turn battle, y'all. I mean, this was, post to post pretty quick. It was over.
Yeah. I guess we'll go ahead and go into our featured match of the week, which was our Commissioner Bowl with Brad and Ian. This was a very fun one to watch. Just looking at it, me and Moth were talking, and apparently you guys were prepping, and I didn't hear anything about. You guys didn't think Turtonator could do anything. That's what I heard anyway. But Turtonator did things.
Well, I'll tell you my Turtonator bit in a little bit, but I did have quite a bit in plan for Turtonator. It just didn't work out that way.
Okay. But just looking at it, it was pretty close. Like, look, even though, like, just Turtonator just swept through everything, it was a pretty close match, all down to it. It was so much fun to watch, as usually always is with the Commissioner Bowl. It's such a competitive match.
Yeah. It seemed like in this matchup, Brad, you really seem to have a lot of the much better defensive switches for the majority of the game. And honestly, until like the very end, it looked like you were going to get it. You could switch Caparaja into that Tornadus any day. You had that banded Seismitoad, which did a ton of work. Poison Touch, I believe, is the ability. That, in addition to a defense drop on type Null, allowed you to 2-hit KO the type Null, which I don't know how much all of that mattered, but that
the poison mattered.
Yeah.
The defense drop, probably not, but the poison for sure.
Yeah. But that, and then you had the Scarf Latios to keep a lot of the faster things in check, and Tangrowth was dealing with Mega Sharpedo every day, and a lot of these Pokemon were also able to deal a huge chunk of damage in return. So they'd switch in defensively, deal a huge chunk of damage, repeat the cycle, and Ian was falling pretty dang behind until that very final Turtonator setup got 2 Shell Smashes, and it's hard to take that down.
Yeah, and this was it was an interesting battle because there was 2 main things that happened well, I'll say 3 that were pretty influential into the battle. The defense drop on the type null, if you wanted to say 4, fine, it did matter, but the fact that it had the poison, he would have had to have been rest. Had he have been rest, I had other ways built in to do greater than 50% to type null in any turn. I know that type null was max HP, no defense set, so it was not going to survive against me very long. Tangrowth missing the Toxic onto the Torn would have done the damage that I needed later on in the match. My Psyshock damage onto the Tornadus, which brought it down to 1%, was fairly certain a min roll. I know what his HP set was from the calcs throughout the game. I could have clicked Ice Beam there, I could have clicked Draco Meteor there. Either one of them probably would have killed him. But I was fairly certain from the calcs that Psyshock was going to kill. Even if Psyshock didn't kill, U-Turn was never going to do more than maybe 30% to me. He had no physical investment. And I only needed Tornadus Therian, or I only needed Latios to be able to come in and drop a Draco onto Turtonator later on in the match. So if I took a 40% U-turn because my Psyshock min rolled, I wasn't worried about that. Like, I thought about that and I was like, that's fine. If that happens, that's not a big deal. But then he crit me on that U-turn and brought me within rocks damage. It certainly worked out for him, and that ultimately ended up being the game. Because here's the thing. Turtonator never lived a Draco Meteor, and it was never going to outspeed my Latios. So I didn't have like 3 sets planned for Turtonator. But the plan was, if Turtonator comes in, I'm going to go into my Seismitoad, which he can't Shell Smash a second time because Earthquake would Oko him. So he's going to have to kill me. And then if he kills me, I'm going to go into my Latios, and I'm going to drop a Draco, and something dies. Whether it's Turtonator or the next thing, something is dead every time. So I felt I had enough. I still feel I had enough. But ultimately, I didn't. And that's just the way the game goes, man.
Yeah, and I'm glad we already had something in place for if something went wrong. Brett, this is your fault. I forgot to start the replay for quite a while, so we're going to have to keep talking for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that was really the story of the match, honestly. I thought the most influential mons in the match really were the Caparaja, that Seismitoad, and obviously the Turtonator. I mean, those 3 mons were kind of the central figures of this showdown. And it was a good match, honestly. It was a really well-played match.
Yeah, I have to agree. I also think that, I mean, of course, Tornadus is always going to play a big role, and that Toxic Miss early on probably did make it a lot better than it would have been, but the Tornadus, it really is just such a great anchor in any game. Even if it wasn't doing a ton to like your Caparaja or anything like that, it was still able to pressure it in, get some good chip, get the U-turns, come in time after time. So
Yeah. Because I know the replay is still rolling. I will just say, I was really impressed with Caparajah, man. I've never used it before. This was the first game it ever showed up for me. Dude's a bulky thing, man. It was able to take some hits I didn't. I really thought it would chip down faster than it did. It was able to come in quite a few times and do some work.
indeed it was. And the final flamethrower of the game just came out.
I will just say, I'm happy for Ian. Congratulations to you, my friend. I think that I'm still way ahead of you on Commissioner Bowl. Just so you know, way ahead of you. Don't want you to forget. Way ahead by like double. But you beat me, and so regardless of what happened, you beat me. Congratulations to you.
Yep, congrats to Ian for sure. So next up, we have 2 transactions, and the first one I certainly alluded to earlier. Regigigas, this guy is out. And just
How
like
dare
Brad
you.
asked me to during the team reviews, I added in Kangaskhan.
I'll let Brett respond. Brett, we all know how I feel. I'll let Brett respond.
Yeah.
I'm very disappointed that you dropped Regigigas. That's all I have to say about that. But Kangaskhan, in its right, is a pretty good mon. You can get a lot of things with it. It has pretty good natural bulk. Gets access to Wish, Yawn for helping switch things out. But just all around, Kangaskhan is a pretty good mon. I've seen it perform well. I'm pretty sure Cody used it pretty well when he was in the league. But yeah, Kangaskhan's a pretty good mon. That's all I really have to say.
Yeah, I think I can actually agree with you. I am also disappointed that I dropped Regigigas. I really didn't want to. I tried my hardest, and usually I'm a really stubborn person, but it takes a special kind of trash for me to vouch for you so hard and still end up dropping you. Regigigas can't do anything right, man. Kangaskhan, for like 5 turns. 5 turns is forever in Pokemon. Kangaskhan is doing more damage. It's faster, and for some reason they decided slow start wasn't enough, so Regigigas doesn't have like bulk up. It has hardly any status moves besides the universal ones that they finally gave them after like 4 generations of not having sub and rest. Not having protect and rest. They finally gave him that, but he still just can't do anything. He's an aggressive Pokemon that can't be aggressive, and so, you know. So I'll let Brad. You can kind of sing the praises of Kangaskhan, because I know you know them well.
I love Kangaskhan. I think it is stronger than it needs to be. It gets hits off more powerfully than it deserves to. It does suffer without the return, but it's still bulky. Still gets the Wish Pass. It's a good mon. It's not, it's E tier for a reason. But I think of the E tier normal types, it's one of the better ones. I find it to be a reliable mon, which isn't something I think you can generally say about E tiers. But I do find it to be reliable. And a lot of what Brett said, it's played well historically in ASL. I've used it in a Commissioner Bowls. One of my favorite Commissioner Bowls ever. I killed Ian's Mega Scizor with my base form Kangaskhan. And that was really fun. I always like it. It's a staple for me, and so I'm glad to see it back in the league. But moving on to the last move, I'm sure you can see this squiggly, inverted, Pollock style line. That's to simply explain that there was a little bit of shenanigans in making this deal happen. Lille essentially offered up his free agent transactions that he wasn't going to be able to use, or he wasn't using, just to help Dravos because he didn't have enough to make this transaction. But I'm not sure that I like this transaction. I really like Mesprit. I think very highly of Mesprit. It's one of the better utility mons for the price. I'm not seeing this one. Obviously, Sigilyph does have the Magic Guard Cosmic Power. That's what it has. But I just don't know. Was Dravo struggling for offense? He's got the Zygarde, he's got the Gengar, he's got the Weavile. Was he struggling for setup? He's got the Sylveon with the Calm Minds, he's got the Zygarde. I'm not sure what this does for him that Mesprit didn't do better.
Yeah, in particular, I think that the loss of Stealth Rocks is really... I mean, I thought that that's something... Mesprit... The two things we were saying when the transaction for Mesprit happened. Am I thinking of this right? No, I'm thinking of the one for Ukes. Okay, so never mind. Scratch that. But yeah, in general, I kind of tend to agree. I do love Sigilyph. It's one of my favorite Pokemon, and I've been wanting to draft it for a really long time. But as far as utility goes, I felt like Mesprit had quite a bit more, particularly the Stealth Rocks and just other stuff like that. But apparently Dravos thought otherwise, which is fine, because the Sigilyph can do stuff. It also, in addition to the Cosmic Power set, has Tinted Lens, which can be pretty good. You can run like the Roost, Defog, maybe another utility move, and you only really need one stab move because it doesn't matter if they resist, it's still doing a good amount of damage. So stuff like that. Sigilyph can do things. So I'm going to be interested to see how Dravos uses it.
Brett, any thoughts on the move?
Not particularly. I personally do like Mesprit more. Seeing that he dropped it, it was one of the things I was looking at picking up, so I might pick that up. Just like looking at it historically, Mesprit's pretty bulky. It really likes the Stealth Rocks. Like SirMoth said, he really suffers with the loss of Stealth Rocks there. And I haven't really seen Sigilyph do much in the ASL. The only thing I remember once is that Static used it against me. Of course, it would have been used against me. That
Naturally.
It actually does something good. But I personally just don't really like Sigilyph.
Yeah. The one thing I don't see on the slideshow, Moth, so I am going to cover it really quickly. But along with this transaction, Dravos also dropped Noctowl and picked up Illumise.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yep. That's Brett's fault. Don't worry about it. It's Brett's fault. See, this failsafe was a really good idea.
It was a good idea. Illumise it's a weird mon, right? It's got the Prankster Tail Glow. But this season's Dry Baton Pass. So, traditionally when I think of Illumise, I think of Tail Glow Baton Pass. But this season's a Dry Pass season. So, it's not here for that. It does have Prankster Defog, which I always like. Prankster Defog's guaranteed removal as long as you can hit the field and be alive. But I'm just not... I don't know. I'm excited to see what Illumise does. I'm open-minded to it. I've seen it before. Malone's used it before to some success. But I'm not sure inherently what it brings to the team.
I think you're thinking of Volbeat when you say Tail Glow.
Oh, am I thinking of Volbeat?
Yeah, you're thinking of Volbeat, but it also still has the Prankster stuff.
Oh, okay. Okay. So there you go. I don't even know who Illumise is.
Yeah, I've seen it do something in another league. It was a team. I don't quite remember if Dravos' team has a lot of weather abusers. I don't think so. But I have seen Illumise used as a prankster weather setter. And that's like the only other niche I've ever seen it fill, and I don't know why that happened to come so consistently in another league, but I don't know. It seems like a really weird trade. I thought that Noctowl I don't know. There must be some kind of niche that Illumise is gonna fill that is being looked at, but
Sure. But the thing I will say is Dravos has played pretty well this season. I thought he's impressed me certainly as a coach. So I'm sure he has reasons. I'm sure he has ideas in his head of what he's going to use them for, and they'll probably work. I just don't see it on the surface.
which may be good for Dravos because at this point we are very likely to not be spoiling any of the secrets of what'll be coming. So if something is coming, it's gonna probably be surprising.
Yeah. If you should have known and we didn't tell you, it's obviously Brett's fault.
Totally. It's always my fault.
Sure.
Everything
It
that
is.
happens
It is.
that goes
You
wrong
know-
is my fault.
Listen, I don't know anyone else that's ever energy balled a Celesteela like you.
Oh my gosh.
What else? What else do we got here today?
Well, we have an end card that says ASL Week 7 review, and it has our names on it. So that's it for the slideshow, unless anyone wants to talk about anything.
I moved my yard today. It was super hot. Yeah, that was terrible.
Oh my gosh, I had to move my computer back upstairs. I moved it downstairs because this room is awfully hot. It's like so high up. Just no way for any air to get into it, and I'm dying in here.
Wow.
Maybe I'm pretty sure you should get that checked out, because if there's no air in there, I don't think you'd be able to breathe, Moth.
Well,
he may be dead.
Yeah, he may be dead.
I might be here in a little bit. You don't know. Maybe if you guys prolong this enough, I'll die from suffocation before the video ends.
Done. I'm in. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
What do we want to talk about?
We could
Okay.
Just
I will say this. I will say this. We didn't do a featured set of the week, so we owe them more. So very quickly, I'm gonna go through. We've got the Commissioner Bowl winners. Let's get them a little bit of recognition, huh?
All
A little bit of
right.
recognition.
All right. I'm getting there
First-
right now.
The first tour, it was a double elimination Battle Factory tour. I was able to win that one. Beat Peach. Won a custom server emote. Woo woo! Good thing I couldn't just add those any day because I own the server. I gotta win it through a stinking tournament. And then, shockingly, Moth won our second tour, which was the Catch and Evolve tour with TCP placing second. And then third, Brett won Hackmon's Cup. So the first three tours, you got us right here, right now. Big tour winners all on the video for you. Peach placing second on that one. Fourth, we had a randoms double elimination tournament with Melone capturing the gold, with Moth coming up as the second place loser. And Peach put together a What the Shift tree. If you don't know what that is, dig through our ASL history. You will find videos on it. Melone got second to the legendary Peach, who dominated me in our matchup with an impressive score of 1-0.
Something that I want to point out is that whenever me and Melone did our What the Shift Tree run, we had the worst performance in What the Shift Tree history.
This is true. This is true.
We went through, I think there were six, I think, normal What the Shift Tree questions. We got them all wrong. And then we did 5 bonus round questions, and we got them all wrong. And the only reason any of us got points is because there were 3 answers, and we both did a backup answer for 2 of the questions that we didn't pick.
Yep.
And there was also another Catch and Evolve tournament, but no one put who won that, so I don't actually know.
Well, if you don't put it down, it didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. Whoever won that, you aren't as awesome as you think you are.
Nope. You didn't win. It wasn't written down. So, wasted your time, didn't you?
All right. Well, that has been our week review, and we have had the privilege of allowing Brett the privilege of joining us, which has been really fun.
Wow.
So, Brett, with that privilege, you are entitled to tell them what they need to say for their weekly dosage of clout, and also sign us off.
Wait, who's doing what? What?
If you made it to this point,
Weekly
put
dosage
this
of
in the
clout?
comments.
Well, obviously we have someone who doesn't watch through to the end of the videos.
Totally. I
Typically.
watched through until my part and then I stopped watching.
If you make it to the end of the video, we have a comment that's like, post this in the comments to let us know that you're still listening. So what
Okay.
will that be this week, Brett?
What you guys need to post in the comments is that Energy Ball is always a safe bet to use against the Celesteela.
It's a long comment, but gotta get it done.
Yep, if you want that clout, it'll take a little effort.
Using my experience from the YouTube days, I guess we're just going to end it here. Thank you so much for watching the ASL Week 7 review. This has been me and Brad and Moth. I should have said me TCP, but he's not here. And that's going to do it. See ya.
See ya.